What's going on, y'all? KM Best here. In my top 8 decks video, I highlighted Silver Surfer and discussed several reasons that I thought it might be an incredibly well-positioned deck. I tested it on ladder in High Infinite, and I am proud to inform you that it was about as good as I thought it was. I had a 70% win rate, and I'm very happy with what I was able to accomplish. So, why Silver Surfer and why now? To me, Silver Surfer's relevance to a metagame is defined by how good its non-standard tech pieces are. And by non-standard, I mean the cards that can go in and out of various Silver Surfer builds. In previous metagames where Silver Surfer has been good, the most recent being a zoo-heavy metagame about a month and a half ago, Silver Surfer was good because Killmonger and Mobius had a bunch of relevant targets. When Killmonger and Mobius had a bunch of relevant targets, that ends up making Silver Surfer very powerful. Killmonger was good into the popular Gilgamesh Zoo decks, and Mobius was good into the Thena Mockingbird decks. This allowed Silver Surfer to have a lot of reasonable game plans into a popular group of decks. This is now true once again. Killmonger is good into people playing Zoo, and there are actually people playing Zoo right now because Zoo is a reasonable deck into the Thena decks. In addition, you have Cassandra Nova and you have Absorbing Man, so you get one of the easier Arishem matchups in the game when you draw your cards in the right order. Cassandra Nova into Absorbing Man is absolutely straight up busted. Now, the deck is also competitive just on points. This is a deck that is able to put a lot of points on the board, and I think this is crucial, it is also able to do so with some real ambiguity. Gwenpool gives this deck a very confusing final turn, and Sarah does kind of the same thing. You might notice that I'm playing Sarah instead of Hope Summers, and a lot of that I do think is dealer's choice, but the argument for Sarah is basically that she increases that final turn ambiguity in a way that Hope Summers rarely actually will. Hope Summers is obviously a 3-drop and has that synergy in here, and I won't get mad at anyone who wants to make that swap, but the real thing that this deck does, in addition to having relevant tech cards, is having explosive and hard to predict turn 6s because of the randomness of Gwenpool and because of the cost reduction of Sarah. That is something that is unique to Sarah, although it can be replicated to some degree with Hope Summers, although a little bit less profitably a lot of the time. Sarah allows you to play 3-drops on the final turn of the game. Hope Summers will rarely actually let you do this, and that does actually matter a reasonable amount of the time. In summary, this is a deck that has reasonable matchups into a wide variety of the field and relevant tech against a decent amount of it as well. If your opponent is playing Sandman, you can simply out-tempo them with Brood and Absorbing Man, while if they are playing something more along the lines of Thena, you can try to compete on points just by being a good deck in terms of points, point output with Gwenpool and Sarah. In addition, against Arishem decks, you have, of course, Cassandra Nova and Absorbing Man, incredibly strong in that matchup, and against Zoo decks, you get to be a Killmonger deck. There's a lot of good things going for this archetype right now, and I personally feel like it's very well positioned into this metagame. Typically, the way to play Nova in a Silver Surfer deck is to avoid playing it on turn 1. Because we are sometimes a Gwenpool into Sarah deck, I have actually been playing this card out a little bit more. This is a much more important tip to remember if you decide to swap Sarah for Hope Summers. If you are playing Hope Summers, never, ever, ever play your Nova before like turn 4, basically. You want to be saving that for the Hope Summers. You want that energy, and that is really, really, really important for how this deck plays out. I typically have been playing it out on turn 2. There are situations that could potentially call for that not to be possible, but sometimes I'll just feel like it's a little bit safer to play it out there. There is also the information to consider. Once your opponent knows you have Nova, the Killmonger is very telegraphed. Not like it's not particularly telegraphed as a Surfer deck anyways, but it is basically a neon sign that does guarantee it to your opponent. So one thing to think about in this deck is when you are curving out, make sure you actually have room to fit Nova in. In every other Silver Surfer deck, that's really not an issue, but because you have multiple 4-drops and a 5-drop, it can actually be an issue to get Nova into your curve, so you do consider playing it a little bit earlier in this list compared to other Surfer decks. Forge is fairly self-explanatory here. He is very, very, very good at giving extra points of power to both your Broods and your Sebastian Shaw. Brood obviously is the card that he is best about hitting, but frankly, on turn 2, if I have Forge, I'm just going to play the Forge and not really worry too much about what it's hitting because I really just want to get on the board and get points down while I can. Forge is just a good rate card that you can turn into a very broken rate card by playing it onto a Brood and then playing Absorbing Man on that Brood. It is legitimately very strong. Many people will ask for a substitute for Cassandra Nova, and I'm unfortunately forced to tell you that I don't think that exists. So if you haven't completed Deadpool's Diner, I would highly advise you attempt to do so. I may be even findable in the diner trying to donate some of my bubs. However, Cassandra Nova in this deck is quite important. Remember how I talked about how it's the other slots in Surfer that make or break the deck being good? Cassandra Nova is that other slot. When you have a card that is so damn good into a decent chunk of the meta, that being Arishem, and so totally good everywhere else, like, this is a 3/7 on turn 3 that is an instant win against Arishem. It's exactly what this deck wants because it's able to be a useful card in every matchup while instantly winning a different matchup. And that is a really, really powerful thing to leverage. Remember that this was something that we were leveraging with Mobius M. Mobius just because it cost 3. And Cassandra is so much bigger than Mobius, and I would argue more impactful in the matchup she hits because you can duplicate her with Absorbing Man. When I talk about the cards that are not guaranteed to be in a Silver Surfer deck, Brood is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about things that are not Brood. Brood Absorbing Man has been a mainstay of Silver Surfer decks basically since they buffed Absorbing Man the first time, and it is an extremely powerful thing to do. Brood especially is a great carrier of Forge buffs. This has been a part of the metagame since I want to say almost a year ago now. I think it was like last August when we first saw Brood abs burst onto the scene. So it's been about a year and it is still going strong. Now, I don't know about you, chat, but when I like to play Silver Surfer decks, I typically include the card Silver Surfer. This seems like the smart thing to do to me. You may differ in your opinion. Killmonger is one of the cards that sort of is a herald of whether or not this deck will be good or bad, I think a lot of the time. When Killmonger is relevant, and it doesn't have to be super relevant, it doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm hitting like 30% of the metagame. It just has to be like a little bit better than only hitting your Nova in every game. Then this deck usually ends up being pretty good. Especially if Zoo starts to pick up steam as a way of dealing with Athena decks. I genuinely think that every time Zoo ends up as the quote-unquote best deck, the deck that does the best job of beating it is not Destroy, it's Silver Surfer. Because I think Silver Surfer is the best Killmonger deck in a general sense. And being the best Killmonger deck as people are returning to explore to Zoo is a really good spot to be in. Even in non-Zoo decks, I'm seeing a lot of like weird random Hydra Bobs. I'm seeing stuff happen with Ultron in their Sandman decks. If you throw priority and blow that up, like, it's not gonna not have targets in a metagame like this. And I think the better Killmonger is, the better Silver Surfer is as an archetype. Sebastian Shaw is here, in my opinion, because we want as many points as we can get. Our methodology against Athena decks, which is the one matchup we don't have like a ton of tech for. We have tech for Arishem, we have tech for Zoo, we can deal with a lot of what everyone else is doing, but against Athena decks, we are very specifically left without many playstyle options and really just have to go try to match them power to power. We need all the cards in this deck that do the most points. And Sebastian Shaw right now, I think, is probably that card. It's possible you could end up replacing him with Gladiator and saying Gladiator's just actually bigger, but I find Sebastian Shaw has less downside risk, and maybe that's an incorrect assessment because the upside might be what matters, but I have been happy with the amount of power I've been able to output into Athena decks, partly because of what Sebastian Shaw brings to bear. Getting a buff from a Nova is actually 3 points on Sebastian Shaw, and of course, getting a buff from a Silver Surfer is going to be 4 points. This is also a deck that is very able to do Surfer into Absman thanks to Sarah, so you can get some really crazy Sebastian Shaws when you play this deck. Copycat is another card that really helps in the matchups where you don't necessarily have relevant tech. The case for Silver Surfer is you have a lot of relevant tech, and then when you don't have a lot of relevant tech, you have a ton of points and utility. And Copycat is just one of the best 3-drops in the game at having points and utility. Now, there are other options here. I think you could probably play Red Guardian, and that would probably be fine. You could maybe get a Hope Summers in here. That would also probably be fine. I have found that Copycat is the best option of those cards, but that's not necessarily to say that she's the only possible one, or that you can't run something else instead of her, like Gladiator or Hope Summers or any of the other cards we've talked about already. Personally, I think she's quite good. I think she's one of the best 3-drops in the game, and at 3/5, her stats are excellent. Her ability to randomly win games is quite important to a deck like this, because again, we don't always have all the tools, but sometimes with just enough points and disruption and weird stuff from their deck, you can put a winning line together, even if you aren't playing Cassandra Nova into Arishem or Killmonger into Zoo. Nocturne is quite powerful. I don't really think I need a lot of conversation to have about Nocturne. This is a 3/5 that moves, and you are very interested in playing 3-cost cards, and you are a deck that is very easily screwed by locations, and this card gets rid of those. Nocturne, I think, is quite important for a deck like this. I won't say it's make or break, but because this deck is so easily screwed by locations, it is a more important card than most of the other expensive cards in here. However, I don't know exactly what priority I'd put on, say, Nocturne versus Copycat. I would guess it would aim towards Nocturne, whereas something like, if you were hypothetically watching this in a few days and Cassandra Nova was available for tokens, and you had to choose between Cassandra Nova and Nocturne, I do think I would pick Cassandra Nova in the context of the current metagame where Arishem is so popular. We're in a little bit of an Absorbing Man-aissance right now. This card is having a little bit of time in the highlight, right? And a lot of that is because of both Brood and Cassandra Nova being very relevant targets to copy. In this Silver Surfer deck, that's very obviously what we're doing, but there's also like Patriot Sandman decks that are leveraging the same thing. And what those decks have in common is that otherwise they would be dogs to Arishem, but if you have the ability to play 2 Cassandra Novas against a deck that has 20 cards in it, you're probably going to win the game. Whatever interaction they have is probably not going to be enough because, you're also still playing Marvel Snap. It's not like that's the only thing you're doing. That's your turn 3 and your turn 4. So when you do that, you end up very favored into a matchup that would otherwise be very problematic. And this applies both to Sandman, which is utilizing that to probably a greater extent than Surfer, because Sandman would be utterly unplayable if it didn't have access to that stuff. Whereas Surfer is able to just sort of bolster what matchup that was probably like, 60-40 Arishem without it into a matchup that is probably now actually favored for you when you draw those cards. And that's just kind of a big deal. It makes Cassandra Nova very hard to replace in a deck like this, and the utility that you gain from being able to copy either Cassandra or Brood, that's a really big deal too, because now you have more than one nut draw. It's not as good as copying Brood, but you are not going to be upset with a 3/7 Cassandra Nova and a 4/9 Absorbing Man, and every card in their deck having -2 power. One dynamic I consistently experienced when playing this deck was that people are not used to the potential output that Gwenpool can generate with Serra. Obviously, getting a Gwenpool hit onto Sebastian Shaw, getting a Gwenpool hit onto Brood, getting a Gwenpool hit onto potentially Absorbing Man if you are able to do Absorbing Man Brood is extremely powerful. I had a game where I played Gwenpool into Serra, and then my final turn was Forge a Brood, which got to 6 power, and then Absorbing Man that Brood, which was also 6 power. I had 38 power on the final turn of the game, and so much of that was down to specifically Gwenpool, because she hit the Brood once and the Absorbing Man once, and that was just enough to make things happen. And that kind of ambiguity just makes this deck very hard to play against on the final turn of the game, because you have these weird, explosive, like, what the hell is happening here? Oh my god, that's a 12 power Sebastian Shaw, or whatever. Like, there's just a lot of weird things that Gwenpool can make happen that your opponents are sort of not prepared for the potential outcome of. There's a lot of hidden information with Gwenpool, and this deck is great at leveraging it. So, Serra. All right, why are we playing Serra instead of Hope Summers? The basic reason for me is a bit about what we talked about previously, which is Sarah is better at your explosive final turns. Now, that might not always be something that is being rewarded, but I found a lot of value in having those multiple option final turns. Hope Summers is never going to get you to 9 energy on turn 6. And that's what you need in order to play multiple three drops, basically, right? And if you want to play 3 drops, Sarah is your best option. Getting to the point where you feel you need to play 3 drops, that's one thing, that's another thing, right? Hope Summers is a card that can work here. I have no objections to it. I think in the long run, it's possible that I just end up totally wrong about this. But right now, as people are not fully prepared for the range of output this deck can have on the final turn, I want to play to maximize that, and that's what Sarah is doing. It's just very difficult to predict what's going to happen against a deck that can do, final turn Brood Absorbing Man and also final turn Brood Silver Surfer and something else, right? Like, it's just very, very difficult to predict what's actually going to happen, and I find that valuable, and Sarah gives me that right now. All right, y'all, thank you for sticking with me through that deck breakdown. We are going to get into some gameplay. I hope you enjoy it. I'm actually quite happy because this is the kind of deck I kind of envisioned being possible when I looked at the spoilers for this season and saw that there was Gwenpool in it and that there was Cassandra Nova in it, and I was like, oh, okay. Maybe there's some real Silver Surfer upside here, and a lot of the stuff I expected to be possible ended up kind of bearing out, right? We saw that this is now a deck that has multiple great 3 into Absorbing Man curves. You can even do Gwenpool into Absorbing Man some of the time and get a lot of power that way. There's a lot of interesting stuff that this deck is able to do, and on top of all of that interesting stuff, it still has the base Silver Surfer core, which is just good. And the fact that Killmonger is relevant right now, the fact that Cassandra Nova is relevant right now, that is icing on the cake. The case for Silver Surfer as a good deck, fundamentally, is that it has a great points package and relevant interaction. And that's usually a way to reach victory in Marvel Snap. With that said, I've been KM Best. You have been phenomenal. Thank you so much. Remember to like and subscribe. And we are going to get into the gameplay right now. Is that I don't like Sarah in it. Absman's kind of interesting. That is super scary. I hope this wins. Heart pounding. Sizer with the raid. What's going on, dude? Did you find anything good today? What you got? I should beat a surfer here, for the record. Wait, no, do I lose this by 1? Oh, I win it by 1. Thank God. I was pretty sure I won. Climb 400 snap points? Is it like the opposite of hydration, Robert? It's Athena list? Oh, okay. I want to get Hope Summers in here, and I don't know how. I feel like this deck needs Hope Summers in it, and I can't really figure out how I'm supposed to do that, but I need it to happen. Cutting Sarah? Okay, that's probably accurate. This is gonna be fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, chat. It's gonna be fine. Don't worry about it. Move destroy. It's Phoenix Force. Am I dead? Five, 6, 7, 8, 9. More. Is my actual move supposed to be this? I must be dead. Wait. I scammed out of it. I'm a genius scammer. I'm a genius God gaming scammer. I genius moded this entire game somehow incredibly. Really? Oh my God. Copycat Absorbing Man. That's gross. That's gross. I just need, like, other cards. Holy shit. What are we even supposed to do? What the fuck? We need to draw a Brood or a Cass. Oh, shit. Okay. Never mind. Do we just play the Cass and hold this copycat so we can do, like... No. We have... Do we just play the Cass, hold the copycat, the Absman for next turn? I'm pretty tempted to do that, actually. I think we are supposed to do that. Yeah. We could Monger Cass. I don't love it, but we could. Ooh, okay, that's annoying. They have one card in hand. Their copycat is Brood. I assume I'm dead if they have the card Silver Surfer. Unless, wait, math? Can we win this? My mistake, I think, was playing Absman here in the US Agent lane. This is 4 in here. I'm probably losing, but I just want to see. Oh my god. They did not have Silver Surfer. How does Sarah feel over Hope Summers to me? Okay. No concrete. I am playing the same fucking people. Can we stop? Have you stated an opinion on New Loki yet? I like it. I think New Loki is cool and good. This is like some sort of setup for Supergiant, yes? Oh my fucking god. Insanely owned. Holy crap. Not super. Okay. This is, like, actually winnable is the thing. I just don't know what their end game is. If I need to play around, like, a Goliath or something? Holy crap. I decided not to play around Goliath. And I went completely fucking apeshit with 36 power on the final turn of the game. Isn't Copycat by definition the most replaceable card ever? Hey, yo. Real? Real? Ew! Fuck. Shit. Fucking Red Hulk jump scare over here, dude. Jesus. Oh, hella jump scare? Okay, I lose. Nice. Might be the most dead anyone's ever been. That's crazy, I know, but... It is quite possibly nobody has ever been deader than me. Unless our Copycat comes up next turn and it's literally fucking hella. How's Sarah working for you over Hope? It's hard to know. I haven't tried Hope. Okay, I like the million energy I have. I'm a fan of that. I gotta be dead, right? Like, if they have Hella... If you have Hella, you're supposed to play it middle here, correct? If you have Hella, you are supposed to play it middle here. We're just gonna have to, like, get lucky, right? We're just gonna have to, like, get lucky. Ooh, see, like, the real question is, like... This ends up being 4, 6. It's the same 6. I think it's actually gonna be this. Okay, they didn't play Hella Middle, which means this was the correct play. You still die. Or we could win! We're geniuses! Haha! Yeah, so that's pretty much what has to happen for us to win. Rock slide. Rock slide. You don't have to turn on the red light. Rock slide. You don't have to send your body to the night. Whoa. Are you running Shaw over other 3-drops? I wanted to see how good he was. Are we going to be able to contest that Angela with this Cassandra Nova for 7, or are we just better off doing this? Answer was no. We were better off doing this. Ooh, this is kind of fascinating. I'm not sure which direction I want to go with this. Ooh. Nice! Nice! I don't mean to sound impatient, but is it possible to review my deck? Titania is a 10-point swing on the right, so it's like, you know, it's fine. Oh, this is gonna go great. Goddamn, great web. Hopefully their Negasonic gets pulled over here. Guess we got somewhere, I don't know. Thing to do, I should say. I see. I want to stay. Okay. Okay. Cam Worst? He's a friend of mine. My question is, am I snapping back here? I don't think so. What are we looking at? Nomura White Tiger? I think I beat Nomura. Because this is 7, and this is 6. I do beat Nomura.